I don't know what changed first, the way she touched me, or the way I started noticing it. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. Just a celebratory dinner. The two of us getting away from our cramped apartment after finals. No deadlines, no frantic studying, no pretending to be just tired when I looked at her a little too long. We'd had celebratory dinners before. One after our first brutal midterms, another last spring when she got that internship she'd been dreaming about. But this time, something felt different. Not because of the place, some fancy downtown restaurant with low lighting and cloth napkins, but because of the way I couldn't stop imagining how it would feel to come home with her. Or worse, how it would feel to wake up with her still there, her warmth beside me, her breath soft against my shoulder. Mary wasn't my first crush, but she was the first one who made me forget to breathe when she laughed. That kind of laugh that was deep and warm and filled any room she was in. A little unrestrained, like she didn't care who heard it. She had this thing where she'd adjust the delicate silver rings on her fingers when she was thinking, and sometimes she'd do it while talking to me, like I made her nervous. I used to tell myself it didn't mean anything, but I'd also memorized the way she looked in an elegant gown, how even just trying it on made her seem like she belonged somewhere else entirely. So maybe I wasn't being completely honest with myself. We stood in our shared living room, ready to call the rideshare. The city lights were just starting to glitter outside our window, and everything smelled like her perfume and the faint, clean scent of rain on pavement. Mary did a slow turn in front of the full-length mirror, the dark green silk of her dress shimmering under the lamplight. She looked over her shoulder at me, a playful grin on her face. "You coming or just going to stare at my ass all evening?" My face went hot. You wish. The banter was normal. It always had been. But this time, I didn't laugh it off the same way. I looked away too quickly. My chest was buzzing in a way I didn't want to name yet. The restaurant was all quiet murmurs and the clinking of silverware, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. Mary charmed the host immediately, getting us a small, intimate booth in the corner. "Best seat in the house," she said, smirking as she slid onto the velvet cushion. "We have a reservation, you know," I reminded her, my voice too casual. "Yeah, but this one's close to the window. You like people watching." I did. I knew a lot of things about her. And tonight, I was scared I might learn even more. Mary and I met freshman year, shoved together by random dorm assignments and the kind of forced enthusiasm only first week of college energy can create. She walked into our shared room with two giant suitcases, a confident smile, and a speaker blasting soulful R&B like she already owned the place. I was quieter, more cautious, still clutching my color-coded class schedule like it was going to save me. But somehow we fit. We fell into routines quickly. Late-night tea, shared study guides, arguing over whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. Mary was the kind of woman who got along with everyone, the magnetic center of every room. I was more of a background presence, content to observe and stay out of the spotlight. But with her, I felt seen, known, even. By the time sophomore year rolled around, we'd survived group projects, bad dates with other people, and one particularly disastrous attempt at baking a birthday cake from scratch. Our friendship wasn't flashy, but it was solid, unshakable. Or at least that's what I told myself. Even when her towel would slip a little after a shower, or when she'd fall asleep on the couch next to me, mouth slightly open, a book resting on her chest. "So," Mary said now, taking a sip of her wine, "you think we actually passed that statistics final?" "Depends on the curve," I replied, tracing a circle on my water glass. "And on how much charisma the professor thinks your frantic last-minute essay has." She grinned. "That's rich coming from someone who still uses flashcards. It's called a proven study method. It's called a cry for help." We were halfway through our entrees when I realized I was staring. Mary noticed, her smile softening. "You lose your train of thought or something?" she asked, her voice gentle. "Just thinking," I said, looking down at my plate. I couldn't bring myself to say I was just thinking about how beautiful she looked, how the candlelight caught the gold in her eyes. I told myself not to read into it. Not everything meant something. But then there were the small things. Like how during dinner her knee brushed mine under the table and didn't move. Or how her eyes softened when she asked if I was tired and I shook my head too fast. Or how later, when we stood on the sidewalk waiting for our ride, she draped her jacket over my shoulders without saying a word because she knew I got cold easily. "You ever think about what it'd be like if we weren't roommates?" she asked suddenly, staring out at the passing headlights. My heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Different lives, different timing. You think we still would have met?" "I think," I said slowly, "that I would have noticed you anyway." She turned toward me at that, and for a second the look in her eyes made my chest tighten. Not because I knew what it meant, but because I didn't. Then our car pulled up to the curb, the spell breaking. We ducked inside, laughing, bumping shoulders. Her hand lingered on my arm longer than it needed to, and I didn't move away. Later, when we were back in our apartment, the space between us felt far too small. The city hummed outside, but inside, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. I couldn't stop thinking about the warmth of her just inches away, and how badly I wanted to close the distance. The air felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. We stood in the hallway between our bedrooms, neither of us quite ready to say goodnight. "Emma," Mary said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Yeah?" She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine like she was trying to find the right words. Her hand reached out, fingers brushing against my forearm, and the touch sent electricity through my entire body. "Tonight was really nice," she said finally. It was. Her thumb traced a small circle on my skin, and I wondered if she could feel my pulse racing beneath her touch. The silence stretched between us, full of everything we weren't saying. "Good night, Emma," she whispered, but she didn't let go of my arm. "Good night, Mary." She held my gaze. Her hand stayed on my arm, and yet nothing had been said. Not really. Nothing definitive. The leftover chill from the night air had seeped into the apartment, but I barely noticed it compared to the growing ache in my chest. Finally, reluctantly, her fingers slipped away. She took a step back toward her bedroom door, then another, her eyes never leaving mine until she disappeared inside. I stood there in the hallway for what felt like hours, my arm still burning where she'd touched me, my heart hammering against my ribs. What just happened? I went to my room and closed the door, leaning against it as I tried to catch my breath. The memory of her touch, the look in her eyes, the way she'd said my name, it all played on repeat in my mind. I changed into my pajamas mechanically, my thoughts racing. Every moment from the evening replayed itself. Her knee against mine, the jacket around my shoulders. That question about whether we'd have met anyway. The way her hand had lingered. Was I imagining things? Reading too much into friendly gestures? Or had something actually shifted between us tonight? I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, knowing sleep wouldn't come easily. Through the thin wall that separated our rooms, I could hear Mary moving around. The soft creak of her bed, the rustle of sheets. Was she lying awake too, thinking about the same things? The apartment settled into quiet, but my mind wouldn't stop. I'd spent so long hiding how I felt, convincing myself that friendship was enough, that wanting more was selfish and dangerous. But tonight had cracked something open inside me, a hope I'd been too afraid to acknowledge, a possibility I'd never let myself consider. I rolled onto my side, pulling my blanket tighter around me, trying to replicate the warmth of her jacket, the comfort of her presence. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow we'd go back to normal. We'd make coffee and joke about our hangovers from celebration and pretend tonight was just another dinner between friends. But even as I thought it, I knew it was a lie. Nothing would be normal anymore, because now I knew what it felt like to have her touch linger, to see that look in her eyes, to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she felt something too. The question was, What was I going to do about it? The next morning was quieter than it had any right to be. The celebratory buzz had faded, but the silence it left behind was thick, almost cautious, like our apartment was holding its breath and waiting to see what would happen next. Mary was already up when I opened my eyes. I could hear the soft clink of a spoon against ceramic from the kitchen. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe past the weight pressing against my chest. Last night had been real. Her hand on my arm, that look in her eyes, the way she'd said my name like it meant something more. I hadn't imagined it. But what did it mean? And more importantly, what was I supposed to do now? The leftover chill from the night air had seeped into my room, but I barely noticed it compared to the growing ache in my chest. I pulled myself out of bed, ran my fingers through my tangled hair, and tried to prepare myself for whatever waited in the kitchen. Would she pretend nothing happened? Would things be awkward? Would we dance around it like we always did, burying the truth under layers of casual conversation and comfortable routine? I found her standing in front of the counter, staring into a mug like it might give her answers. Her hair was pulled up in a messy bun, and she wore an old, soft t-shirt that I knew she'd had since high school. She looked like she hadn't slept either. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice soft. She turned and smiled, quick and automatic. Too automatic. "Hey, want coffee? It's leftover from yesterday, isn't it?" Lukewarm at best, but sure. I stepped closer, then hesitated. The space between us felt different now, charged with everything we hadn't said. "You okay?" She handed me a mug without meeting my eyes. "Yeah, just tired." There was a long pause where we both sipped coffee we didn't really want. The air between us was brittle, like thin ice that might crack at any moment. I watched her over the rim of my mug, the way she kept adjusting those silver rings on her fingers, the way her jaw was tight, like she was holding something back, the way she wouldn't quite look at me. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Finally, I broke. "Mary, about last night." "You don't have to say anything," she interrupted, voice rushed and uneven. "I mean, it was a nice dinner. We were celebrating. People get weird after finals and—" "Stop." I didn't mean to cut her off, but the words came out firmer than I expected. I stepped forward, placing my mug on the counter behind her, and waited until she looked at me. Her eyes were tired, guarded. A part of me wanted to retreat, to let her deflect and pretend and keep everything safe and uncomplicated. But I couldn't, not after how long I'd kept this in. "I do want to say something," I said, quieter this time. "And I need you to actually hear it." She nodded, barely. I inhaled, trying to find the courage I'd been avoiding for months. Years, maybe. "I've felt something for a long time," I started. "It's not just some passing thing or a crush I can shake off. It's you. Every time I walk into the apartment and hear you singing off-key in the shower, every time you use my favorite mug because you know it makes me smile, every time you remember I hate cilantro and ask for it on the side without me having to say anything." Her expression didn't change, but I saw the shift in her eyes, saw something tighten, something brace. "I thought it was just friendship," I continued. "And for a long time I told myself that was enough. But it's not. Not anymore." I swallowed. "Last night, it felt like something real. And if I'm wrong, if it meant nothing to you, I'll drop it. I swear I'll never bring it up again. But I needed you to know." The silence that followed was the longest I've ever endured. She stood there, unmoving, her lips slightly parted like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Just when I was about to turn away, about to gather what pride I had left and make for the door, she spoke. "You're not wrong." My heart stuttered. She ran a hand over her face and let out a slow breath. "I've been trying not to deal with this with us because it didn't make sense. Because you're you, and I didn't want to screw up the best thing I've got." "Mary? No, let me finish." Her voice cracked a little. I didn't know what to call it at first. I just knew that when you weren't around, I missed you more than I should. And when you were around, I was constantly trying not to stare too long, not to touch you too much, not to cross a line that I didn't even know existed. She looked at me then, really looked, and there was nothing guarded in her gaze anymore, just raw honesty. You mean more to me than I've let myself admit. I didn't know how to say that without losing you. You're not going to lose me, I said, stepping in close now, our bodies only inches apart. Not for being honest. She exhaled like she'd been holding that breath for days. I don't know what happens next. I've never done this, never felt this way before. I reached out, my voice barely a whisper, fulfilling the thought I'd had all night. Can I kiss you? The hesitation in her eyes melted into something softer, something vulnerable and warm. And then, finally, she nodded. It wasn't a dramatic kiss, not rushed or rough. It was quiet, hesitant, a question asked and answered without words. Her lips were soft against mine, trembling slightly. I answered by not pulling back, my hand rising to her jaw, fingers brushing the soft skin there as our mouths met fully. Mary kissed like she did everything else completely, with unspoken depth behind every movement. There was tension in it, yes, but also something like relief, like letting go. When we finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine and whispered, "You're shaking." I laughed, breathless, because I didn't think this would ever happen. Well, her smile was small but real. It did. The world didn't look any different, but everything felt different. We spent the rest of the morning moving through the apartment like the air had changed. It wasn't just the kiss or the words. We'd cracked something open between us, and now there was no stuffing it back into the dark. Mary sat on the couch with her legs curled under her, cradling a fresh mug of coffee I'd made for both of us. Her hair was still a mess, her t-shirt rumpled, but I'd never seen her look more at ease. Or maybe I was just seeing her differently now. Every glance between us lingered longer than necessary. Every brush of fingers when I handed her the sugar carried a heat that hadn't been there, or at least hadn't been acknowledged before. She caught me staring, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "You're doing that thing." "What thing?" "That I'm secretly in love with my roommate but trying to look casual about it thing." I snorted and rolled my eyes, sitting beside her, our thighs barely touching. I was doing that before the kiss. Now I'm just openly in love with you and trying not to combust. She laughed, full and real. Fair. We sat in a comfortable silence, sipping coffee. The tension between us no longer sharp and unspoken, but warm, known, and electric. Eventually, she spoke, more thoughtful this time. "So what now?" I looked at her, really looked. "What do you want to happen?" She hesitated. "I want this to be real. I want to see where this goes, but I'm scared I'll mess it up, that I'll say the wrong thing, or freeze up, or panic the first time we go out and someone assumes we're together." I nodded, heart aching a little at her honesty. "It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too. But I'd rather figure it out with you than keep pretending there's nothing between us." She shifted, resting her shoulder against mine, just barely. "So we take it slow? As slow as you need." I smiled, then added with a grin. "But not too slow. That kiss was really good. I'd hate to wait another 6 months for the next one." She laughed, leaning in just enough to brush her lips against my cheek. "Duly noted." We stayed there, close but not rushed, talking through the small things. Who we would tell first. What it might be like sharing a room now, not just as roommates, but as something more. How we'd handle the weirdness, the inevitable awkward stumbles. At some point, she laced her fingers through mine without a word. It wasn't dramatic or even particularly romantic. It just was. Like we were already shifting into something softer, something real. She looked down at our joined hands. "I used to imagine what it would feel like to hold your hand, but I always pictured it in secret, like some random moment in the dark where no one could see us." I squeezed her fingers. I don't want to be a secret, but I'll be patient. Her gaze lifted to mine. I don't want you to be a secret either. I'm just still learning how to do this, how to be this. That's okay. I kissed her knuckles. We've got time. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, warming the space between us like it knew something had changed. Because it had. We didn't need to map everything out. We just had to be here, in our small apartment, facing it all together. And that was enough. She nudged my shoulder. So, about that second kiss? I grinned, turning to face her fully. Yes, girlfriend? She froze, then looked at me. Was that official? Are we doing that? You kissed me, no take-backsies. She shook her head, chuckling as I leaned in. This kiss was different from the first. Less tentative, more sure. Like we'd already crossed the hardest part and now we could just exist in this new reality we'd created. Her hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing softly against my skin. I felt her smile against my lips, and it made my chest feel so full I thought I might burst. When we pulled apart, she was looking at me with those warm, gold-flecked eyes, and I saw everything I'd been hoping for reflected back at me. I can't believe this is real, she whispered. Believe it. She rested her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. We stayed like that for a long time, just breathing together, letting the weight of what had happened settle into something comfortable and true. Emma? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to say something. I don't think I ever would have. I pressed a kiss to the top of her head. I think you would have. Eventually. Maybe, she said softly. But I'm glad it was you. The city hummed on outside, people going about their lives, completely unaware that in this tiny apartment, everything had changed. We'd gone from roommates to something more. From hiding to honoring what we felt. From silence to truth. And it was terrifying and beautiful and uncertain all at once. But as I sat there with Mary in my arms, her fingers still laced with mine, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Because that's what love was, wasn't it? Not the grand gestures or the perfect moments, but the quiet choice to be vulnerable. To risk everything for the possibility of something real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Hey, Emma? I love you. The words hung in the air, simple and honest and more powerful than anything I'd ever heard. I pulled back just enough to look at her, to see the nervous hope in her eyes, the way she was biting her lip, waiting for my response. I love you too, Mary. I think I have for a while now. Her smile was radiant, brighter than the afternoon sun streaming through our window, warmer than any celebration dinner could ever be. She kissed me again, soft and sweet, and I knew that this was just the beginning. The beginning of something messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. The beginning of us,